Hello, I'm Judith A. Yates, true crime author and criminologist. This is Best True Crime. Every episode, I take you on a journey to explore crime, forensics, and investigations. Hey everybody, I'm Judith A. Yates, true crime author and criminologist. And today we have a special treat. We have Miss Rachael Bell, who is the Sophia Loren Sigmund Freud of true crime. She's the creator of the Savannah Crime Expo and the Crimes Unlimited True Crime podcast. She also owns a mental health practice and is a licensed professional counselor in South Carolina and Georgia. And there are two master's degree in psychology from a Dutch Royal University on her wall. Did you know any of the Dutch Royals?
No, but when they have a ritual there that if you get your master's, you get to sign your name on a wall there that they've had for about 300 years. And I signed my name right underneath who is now the king.
Really? So you can't tell us any good dirt?
Yep. Oh, no.
No dirt?
No, but I know friends of the wall there.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. Yep, I do.
Did you know anybody that knew Prince Andrew?
Yep.
Anything on Prince Andrew or Lady Di?
No. I know the Dutch royals. No.
I thought maybe
no,
one
I only have a
get together,
commemorative plate from,
they all hung out
King
together
Charles.
to do the royal thing,
They probably did. I did see a royal procession with Queen Beatrix when she was queen, and that was pretty much it. And then her son took over, the one who married Maxima from Argentina, and that was really exciting. So, and he's now king of the Netherlands.
I bet they have some interesting parties there.
They sure do, I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure that they definitely dance. They dance a lot. Because she's quite the dancer. Because she's from Argentina.
From what we hear, Prince Andrew is.
But we can't cry for it, so.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Randy Andy did some dancing too. He's really dancing about right now. So, you think Gisela or what's her name? The one that just went to prison.
Who was it?
How do you say her name? Giselle.
Giselle. Yeah. Yeah.
You think she'll talk?
She did. Oh gosh. Yep. I'm sorry?
Do you think she'll talk?
I didn't hear you.
Do you think she'll talk?
No. Now that she probably wants to live, she's probably not in her best interest to talk. I'd keep my mouth shut if I were in that position, although I would never be in that position. So,
I don't think so.
Yep.
I think she'll do her time and shut up.
Well, I'm happy to be on here. I can't thank you enough. I'm excited.
I'm excited.
And I'm excited to see you at the expo.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
So much fun. Well, tell us about this Savannah Crime Expo, because it's like one of the best. And it's so much fun because it's not.
I got to tell you how it started.
So, yeah, let's talk about that.
I got to tell you how it started. So, I was with Dr. Catherine Ramsland, who's like a big sister to me.
I love her.
A renowned forensic. Yeah. She's like a big sister to me. I've known her for more than 25 years, and she was good friends with my mom. She's a family friend. And actually, my mom launched both Dr. Catherine Ramsland's and my career, because my mother was a serial killer expert and was the creator of Court TV's Crime Library. But before Court TV ever came on board, it was just Crime Library. It was the first true crime database. So anyways, Dr. Catherine Ramsland, who I call KK, was at my house with Kathy Kleiner, who was one of the few surviving victims of Ted Bundy from the Chi Omega sorority house. So we were. I know, I love her. She's like a sister too. And so we were hanging out and at my house, playing with the dog on the bed, goofing off, girl talking, and getting ready in the morning after a talk. And because they both did a talk on on Ted Bundy. And I had arranged the talk at the local university, Georgia Southern Armstrong campus, here right outside Savannah, and our downtown Savannah, but it was still in Savannah proper. And so we were hanging out at my house, and they were getting ready. We started to get ready to go out. And I'm like, you know what? What do you guys think of like a Savannah crime kind of thing? But we just do it here in Savannah because I'm too lazy to go outside of Savannah. I just want to stay home because I'm a bum. And and, uh, and I'm like kind of like a Savannah Crime Expo. What do you guys think? And they're like, yeah, that sounds cool. Great. And so I thought, gosh, who would we have at it? And so KK. So I call Kathy Kleiner Coco, and I call Ramsland KK because I guess I never grew up past 7 years old. So you
got to keep
so,
them. You got to keep them too. You don't.
So I have like little love. I have love names for them, like sisterly love names for them, and they're like, yeah, that's cool. How about Mark Safrick, and how about Dr. Henry Lee, and of course we'll be there. How about Stephanie Snyder, and we'll just bring on these people. So I called everyone that day, and I said, hey, I can't pay you guys, but are you guys interested in doing this thing that I haven't even started yet called, that I'm going to name the Savannah Crime Expo? So that was the same day, and everyone said yes. And that evening, I had the website up and was selling tickets, and I had the venue.
You're dangerous.
That
You're
night.
like me. Whenever I say, I have an idea, see, the danger starts. And it doesn't stop. Yeah. And I adore Henry.
Oh my gosh. He's such a beautiful soul. I mean, he and his wife are they're beautiful. I love them. And so it was up that night, and they're like, are you nuts? And I'm like, yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, you almost have to be in the true crime field. Something's got to be a little, going on. So to be like fixated with it. I'm like, don't worry about it. It's just, the OCD and the ADHD and my Asperger's self that, is on crack right now. And so, yeah, had to jump at it. And so it worked out. And so it's afterwards, I was like working on the details. And as time progressed, I was like, what in the heck was I? What did I get myself into? I don't even have dinner parties. I mean, no one comes even over to my house unless you can wear a nightgown, right? Unless I can wear my nightgown when you're coming over and I can be a bum and hold the remote control. Yeah, I never entertain, ever. And so suddenly I feel like I can entertain a couple hundred people or a few hundred people. What was I thinking? Like, never have I entertained before. So that was really, really interesting, but turned out to be an absolute blast, an absolute party. And I loved every second of it. It was the most fun thing I did. And so I wasn't going to do a second one, actually. And there was no plan to do a second one. The plan was to just do a one and done and just have some fun. Oh, that rhymed, didn't it? But people were like, oh my gosh, you got to do next year. And so it was actually at the expo, as we were ending the expo, that I was like, you know what? I stood up on stage. I was like, and I made a decision, we're going to do this next year. And they're like, yeah. And so, yeah. So here I am going into the second year.
Awesome.
Yeah. Because clearly I fly by the seat of my pants. Yeah. Yeah. But it was a blast. I'm looking forward to this year. This year is going to be really interesting. So the Savannah Crime Expo this year is going to have Dr. Henry Lee, who's one of the leading forensic one of the leading forensic experts in the world. He has a forensic institute named after him. He has worked on over 8,000 cases, including the Elizabeth Smart case and John Benet Ramsey. I mean, he's been involved probably, had his finger in every high-profile crime out there probably. And has, I don't even know how many honorary doctorates. When I was putting his bio on the Savannah Crime Expo website, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to just need its own website just for his bio because it took up so much room. I was like, oh my gosh.
You name it.
Yeah. So he's going to,
if you name it, Henry's had a hand in it.
I'm telling you, this guy, he's brilliant. And the nicest guy you ever want to meet.
Oh, he's got this sense of humor.
Just funny.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he was a goofball. So we were goofballing the entire time. By the way, everyone there was a goofball last year, and they're all going to be goofballs this year.
It was
And
fun.
so we're going to have, yeah. So we're going to have him, Ashley Wilcott, who's a judge, or former judge who was on Court TV, and she's just amazing. We're going to have Dr. Laura Petler, who used to be on the Dr. Oz show, and a criminologist, crime scene reconstructionist, and we're going to have Stephanie Snyder back, Stephanie Scott Snyder back, and she does a lot of what I do. So she is a counselor, and she does sex offender groups like me, right? And so we always talk about the groups that we do, the offender groups. She does it in Jersey, and I do it here right outside of Savannah. And we just talk about, just the different laws here and how we do the different programs. I have about 40 offenders on my caseload that, I'm a contractor with Department of Corrections, and I developed a program that I do in my private practice. And so, and I've been doing it since 2012, and I love it. I'm absolutely passionate for it because I watch these people come into my practice, and they're just like, they're struggling. They have these sexual urges that they're struggling with controlling. And by the time they're done with the program, a lot of them, the risk of recidivism significantly falls. And many of them go on to be really good members of society. And that's the hope, right? Because, you don't want them to go on to commit more crimes. And so it's rewarding. And Stephanie Scott Snyder does that. And she does an amazing job. So she's going to be talking about that. And she teaches with me at the Sales University. She teaches forensics. I teach forensic, a form of forensic psychology, focusing on antisocial behaviors at the same university, the Sales University, where Dr. Catherine Ramsland's a chair. And she teaches as well there. So it's very exciting. But she's going to be there doing a workshop with Dr. Catherine Ramsland's going to be doing her own workshop there. The amazing Cheryl McCullum is going to be there. Very exciting. She was just nominated for CSI Atlanta for a second Emmy. She brought her Emmy, the last expo, with her, that we like to liken to a Travelocity gnome that she takes everywhere with her, and she takes pictures of it in all the craziest places. And of course, we took really fun pictures of it at the expo, dressing it up and doing crazy things with it. But we had fun with the Emmy. And she's a hoot. So these are just people that are the most down-to-earth human beings you ever want to meet. And they're just having fun with what they do. But what they do is so serious, right, and so profound. They just really lead the way in the field. And, Cheryl McCullum does a lot of cold case stuff. She helps solve cold cases. And so it's amazing. She's just an amazing individual. And Dr. Catherine Ramsland, again, coming back for a second year. And she's, I think, just finished her 70th book. A lot of people don't know this, but she was the biographer of Dean Koontz, and she also wrote all the companion books for Anne Rice's books, including her naughty books, and wrote all the companion books for it. She knew Anne Rice, yeah, who recently passed away. But she went into the field of the paranormal and also true crime, and she became an expert in it. And she is currently the biographer of the BTK killer, Dennis Rader. And she was recently on an A&E special regarding the BTK killer, and I was on the show with her. It was very exciting.
You guys did a fabulous job. Yeah, you guys were awesome.
Oh, thank you. It was fun. It was fun to do. And so they're going to be there. Cloyd Steiger is going to be there. He's amazing. Solved a lot of criminal cases in his time in Washington State. He's going to be talking about it. He's just the Mac Daddy. And he's going to be doing some talk about one of the cases that he worked on. And we're going to be having Greg McCrary. Greg McCrary was one of the original mine hunters. And he worked with John Douglas in the FBI at the BSU division when it was new in its infancy.
Baby, yeah.
And he was one of the early profilers. He was one of the first profilers. Very exciting. And he worked on gazillions of cases. And I asked him to talk about one of the cases that we were on a show together, a Killer Kids show together, that I was really fascinated on. And a lot of these people that are in the expo last year and this year are on my podcast. So my Crimes Unlimited podcast. And we talked about Craig Price, who's a teenage serial killer. So he's going to be talking about his work on that case and the phenomenal way he contributed to the solving of this case. And I'm going to tell you what, I've never heard anything like it. It's absolutely ridiculous how he contributed to the solving of that case. It's going to blow your mind. So he's going to be there. We're also going to be having the Nesbitts. Mark and Carol Nesbitt are going to be there, and they're paranormal investigators and authors that have done a lot of work, research. They do paranormal investigations in Gettysburg, and they're just amazing people. And they were friends of my parents. They're friends of Dr. Catherine Ramsley and mine, and they've done a lot of paranormal stuff here in Savannah with my family, with my mom, and had some crazy experiences here when they were in Savannah, because it's a very haunted city, if you believe in that kind of stuff.
Savannah.
The reason I brought them in, yes, it's an amazing city. And the reason why I brought them in is it's getting close to Halloween when the expo is. It's about a month and a half to almost 2 months away. And so I thought I'd bring it in and put a fun spin to it, because Savannah has such a haunted feel. If you haven't been to Savannah, or for those who haven't been there, you come there and you just feel it's got that atmosphere kind of like New Orleans, where you just get that feel of, that presence, a thick atmosphere, and you just, you kind of go back in time in your head, and
Definitely.
it's kind of like where, you get Gone with the Wind feel, but it meets like this bohemian lifestyle, and it's kind of cool.
Yes, and the whole historic area is built on graves. It's built on the graves because it has such a dark history.
It is. So it truly does. It's really impressed that, by the way, was given to Abraham Lincoln as a gift by Tecumseh Sherman, because the people were noted to be so gracious and kind. And of course, they didn't want their city burned, because Tecumseh Sherman was burning his way from Atlanta to the sea, and the sea was where, yeah. And they're like, yeah, please don't kill us. So they're like, we'll be really, really nice, which is great, because it's maintained the beauty. And so it goes back, you have buildings and architecture that go back to the Revolutionary War. And you still have the dueling fields and the Revolutionary War cemeteries. It's very, very historical and gorgeous. And that's why I wanted it to stay, the expo, outside of my being lazy, I wanted it to stay in Savannah, because quite honestly, who wants to leave it? When I moved here from Europe, from the Netherlands, I thought, you know what? I never want to leave this place. This, to me, is the most beautiful place on earth. And it's been listed as one of the top 5 most beautiful cities in America for decades. So I'm very proud to live here. So that's why the Savannah Expo will always remain the Savannah Expo. And a lot of people, when they'll text me or they'll go on my website, I'm like, hey, can you bring the Savannah Expo elsewhere? I'm like, well, then it wouldn't be the Savannah Expo.
Thank you.
And so it stays in Savannah. Yeah. Unless, but someone did point out, well, there's other Savannahs in the States. Why can't you bring it there? I'm like, well, yeah, but, then it comes back to my being lazy, not wanting to leave my city. So I get what I'm picking up what you're laying down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to stay here. It's so nice. I can operate everything from here. This is where my offices are. This is where I know the people here. I love the people here. And quite honestly, I'd like to bring commerce here to this city. So, yeah. And of course, you have what famous criminal case put Savannah on the map? Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, the Jim Williams case, right? And that's why a lot of people flock to Savannah, because of that famous criminal case where Jim Williams killed his lover, Danny, and in the Mercer house on Bull Street. And so Clint Eastwood did a great movie on it with Kevin Spacey and John Cusack and a lot of other amazing people in it. And it was just such a big hit. And my mother actually wrote the true story of it. So it's from the legal perspective, called After Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. And that made it to the Wall Street Journal's best-selling list. And the lead prosecuting attorney, Sonny Seiler, who's also the daddy of Uga from the Georgia Bulldogs, and I'm sorry, he was the lead defense attorney and the lead prosecuting attorney, opened the vault for my mom to give her access to records that were previously unavailable, so she can really do a good job in writing the book. So they were great in helping her write that book. And that's what launched that. That was one of her 2 books that made it to the Wall Street Journal's best-selling list. Yeah.
Okay, we have, this thing tells me it's going to cut me off in 10 minutes, so we might have to do a second one. If we do, I'll just send you a link and we'll start it over. Okay.
You got it.
You have a notice on the conference page in memory of my mother and thanking your husband. Tell us who your mom was and why you're dedicating this conference to her and what she means to you. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So my mom was my best friend. She was also, she was the #1 person I looked up to my whole life, next to my dad. And she was the creator of Court TV's Crime Library. It used to just be Crime Library. And she was a brilliant woman, had a genius IQ. And I call her Midas. Everything she touched turned to gold. She was very steeped in the corporate world and telecom in the 90s. But one night she had a dream when the internet was new. And she said, I had a dream that this new thing called the World Wide Web, that I created this like crime database. And she had always been kind of like a Sherlock Holmes, Nancy Drew kind of character. And I actually solved the crime, the Kingsbury Run serial killer crime, and found out that it was actually, the killer was Frank Sweeney, who was a doctor. And that case was a renowned case in Cleveland, Ohio, where my mother and I are from. That's where I was born. And so she solved the case, and the family actually threatened her life because they're a prominent family in the upper echelons in Washington government. And so I remember my earliest memories were of her finding out who the killer was and being threatened and followed, and it was very scary for her. So she wanted to write about the case, and she was afraid because, so the death threats from the family were so numerous. So she laid low for decades. And then later, when the internet came out, she thought, I'm going to do this true crime database, and this is going to be one of the stories in it. So I was her first writer, and Dr. Catherine Ramsland was her first writer as well. And we started writing. And you have to keep in mind, Vince Cerf, who the World Wide Web, or the internet, was one of her best friends, and he was the creator of it. And he would come to the house all the time and hang out because they worked together at MCI. And so she told him about her doing this, and he was like, oh, that's really cool, and kind of helped her with her idea. And so we launched it, and it became huge and got such an enormous response when it went live on the internet. And she got, I think, got up to millions and millions of page views. And so we just kept going, and eventually Court TV, CNN Time Warner, came to us and was like, hey, we want to buy you out, and we'll put you in charge of, my mom in charge of it. And so they did, and became Court TV's Crime Library. And she ended up winning 2 Webbies for it because it was the first true crime database on the internet. And John Douglas, who was the original Mindhunter, they did a whole show around him called Mindhunter. And he would have all the links on his website in the early days to all the Crime Library stories. So it was really just exciting time. This was in the 90s, right? The mid to later 90s. And it just exploded. And so we then signed on to working for Court TV. And this is at a time where true crime wasn't really that big. But it started to become bigger with the OJ trial and all that stuff. And And so it was in its early heyday. And it wasn't until around 2010 that true crime started to kind of decline. And then we pulled out of court TV. We pulled out of Crime Library. We ended it. We walked away. And then we started a publishing company called Crimescape here in Savannah. Yeah. So she's my best friend. So she passed away in January 2019. And the Savannah Crime Expo is a tribute to her. And that same year, my beautiful husband, William Fulweiler, who his nickname was Jay, passed away in a car accident. So I dedicated the Savannah Crime Expo to them in their honor, because really, if it wasn't for them, none of it would have been possible. They were my biggest supporters. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, everyone has that crime that just, we have like 3.5 minutes here. Everyone has that crime that just fascinates, grabs them for whatever reason, doesn't let go. What's yours?
Yes. Dennis Rader, the BTK killer. He actually used a story that my mom and I and David Lohr wrote for Court TV's Crime Library. And he used the story to taunt the police that he sent to Cake TV. And he used that story to taunt them prior to his capture, with the floppy disk at the church.
Yeah.
And so Dr. Catherine Ramsland actually talked to him about it in jail, because she did a lot of jailhouse interviews with him as his biographer. And she was like, did you know that those were my friends, that you took the story, you start changing the chapters around before you sent it to Cake TV in Wichita, Kansas? And he's like, no, I didn't know them. But she's like, yeah, I just wanted to let you know. Yeah, that was them. And I don't think he had a memory of the details of it. Maybe he did. I don't know. But yeah,
Is that a strange?
It wasn't a big deal.
That is just a strange serendipity there.
Yeah, isn't it crazy? Yeah.
Have you ever interviewed him?
So he had people. I'm sorry?
Have you ever interviewed him?
No. I have no interest. No. Dr. Catherine Ramsland does such a brilliant job.
She really
that,
does.
she let her take that bull. Yeah, by the horns. She's excellent with it. But that case fascinated me because of the nature of his crimes. He killed 10 people there. And it's just the nature of how he did it. The binding, the torturing, the killing. There was so much also to learn psychologically from his case, and getting into the mind of a serial killer, and to understand the cubing that he talked about, how he was able to switch from this family man to, suddenly this,
right,
crazy stalker killer. And I'm fascinated by the case because one of my specialties is severe sexual crimes and paraphilic disorders, which he had a number of paraphilic or sexual obsessions.
question for you.
So, shoot.
Do you believe that some people, and I believe this, but it's very rare, some people are born evil?
You know, evil is a more of a spiritual term. I'm a very spiritual person, right? So clinically, I'm not really ethically allowed to say that, but I sure as hell do believe in evil. I'm going to tell you what, and you know when you're in the presence of it. When I'm in the presence of it, the hair stands up on the back of my neck. I'm repelled, and I have a physical, biological, visceral response to it. And my response is to want to get the hell away. Sorry if I'm saying bad language, but that's what happens, right? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And so, but people who don't believe in that or don't work from a realm, you know, have a spiritual belief system, they'll say, well, you know, that's not really scientific, Rachel. How could you put that in scientific terms? I'm like, well, psychopathy would be, I guess, the more clinical term. Now, keep in mind, though, that in America, we don't use psychopathy is not a diagnosis. It's everywhere outside of America that psychopathy is a diagnosis. Here in America, we call it antisocial personality disorder plus, right? So it's not just antisocial personality disorder, it's antisocial personality disorder with many other components added on to it. And eventually we're going to have to get on board here in the States with the definition of, at least according to Dr. Robert Hare, from Canada, of psychopathy, because I think he really led the way in research on what that really is. And there's a lot of research, not only and he really honed in on a better definition and what that criteria is. And there's a lot of other research that has been done into what it looks like in the brain, right? What the neural constructs are in the brain, because their brains do function different, right? And there's also hormonal differences as well. So there's a hormone that's released from the hypothalamus in the brain called corticotropin releasing hormone, and that's the original fight or flight hormone. And for some reason, people like serial killers are really just have a dearth of that hormone. It's just they're not really releasing enough of it, and so they don't experience a lot of anxiety. And so they have to go to extremes to get a rise. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
And then they go to extremes to get that rise. But there's a lot of other factors involved. It's not just that. But keep in mind that if you have a huge hormonal disruption in your brain like that, it affects the whole negative feedback loop in your brain, affects all behaviors and how you think, and it does affect the structure of your brain. So you will have brain differences. Your brain will be wired differently and it will look differently in an MRI. Now,
but I definitely believe, like you said, evil component separate from biological, separate from neurological. There is evil, and people are born evil regardless. Rare there.
There's some great literature written on that. I forget the name. Savage Seed, I think one of the books is called. It's brilliant, and it's about the psychiatrist who counseled kids, and he noticed that there's he specialized in more extreme cases, and he wrote the book about kids who met the criteria of psychopathy. So these kids didn't feel, they didn't have empathy, they had superficial charm, they enjoyed and derived pleasure from hurting people. They had extraordinary narcissistic traits, which was just a tiny component of psychopathy, right, of the definition. And they had parasitic lifestyle or parasitic-like behaviors, and so they were like dinging off all these things. So they actually developed a juvenile version of the psychopathy checklist. Dr. Hare has a juvenile version of it, which is itself makes you wonder, like, oh gosh, this happens in kids too, and it makes you ask why. Is it they're, were they beaten? Did they get head trauma? Like, why? And many of these kids came from very happy, normal homes, weren't beaten. Little Johnny or Susan didn't have head trauma, or they weren't bullied. And, there's a woman that lives here in town. Her son had psychopathy, and she saw it. He killed her daughter. So her son killed her daughter, murdered her daughter. And he was diagnosed with psychopathy. And he was a little boy when he killed her daughter, and he enjoyed the killing of her daughter. He enjoyed it. He derived gratification from it. He revels in it. He fantasizes about the re-killing of her in his head. And she said that from youth, from early on, she knew something was significantly amiss. Now, when I look at babies, I don't see evil. I just don't, But there are some people that believe that something somewhere along the way, something happens. So I've heard people who in different faiths have a different explanation for this, right? So maybe Christians may think, oh yeah, they at some point along the line, they've been possessed, right? Or at some point they're just like, it depends on the culture, right? And the religion. So again, this is a spiritual perception. When you say evil, they really don't talk about evil in the field of psychology from a scientific perspective, not often. Unless you go more into the realm of, the paranormal or something, right?
Well, Rachael Bell is the Sophia Loren Sigmund Freud of true crime. She's the creator of the Savannah Crime Expo and the Crimes Unlimited True Crime podcast. I want you to go to the Savannah Crime Expo, meet her, come say hello. I'm be signing books, saying hello and talking trash. Tell us, when is the Savannah Crime Expo and how do we get tickets? What's the website? What's the 411?
September 10th.
Woo!
It's September 10th. I hope to see everyone there. I'm jazzed. I'm so excited to see you there. And it's at the DeSoto Hotel in Savannah, Georgia. Not other Savannahs in the U.S., but Savannah, Georgia. And people can get tickets if you go to SavannahCrimeExpo.com. You can buy tickets there right on the website, and you can meet me. And I'd love to meet everybody. I keep the event small, and I do it deliberately. I want it small so the anyone who wants to talk to us personally can talk to us personally. I want a down-home feel. I want people to feel that they can just come up to us when we're walking around and just strike up a conversation and ask us any question that they have. And that's what that's what I was going for when I did this. I don't want someone where you have thousands of people or 5,000 people, because you can't, it's very informal, a very informal expo. And so it's for the general public. We're going to have vendors there. We're going to have true crime podcasters. We're going to have a serial killer museum. We're going to have, they're exhibiting. We're going to have a true crime film fest from Atlanta exhibiting. We're going to have amazing authors, a hint, hint, nod, nod. Miss Judith Yates is going to be there. We're going to have just some amazing people as vendors. And we're going to have a crime scene available that you can solve. So I'm in the process of deciding if it's going to be a walkthrough or if it's going to be virtual reality. I'm trying to see if I can get the technology to do a virtual reality crime scene walkthrough, or if we're just going to do a physical walkthrough. So I'm working with some folk to see if we could do in time a virtual reality crime scene solving experience, and that would be absolutely exciting.
It would be. I love
And
you,
working
Laura.
with some people, but that's right now. I'm going to find out hopefully in the next 2 weeks. I know it's cutting the wire, but hey, um, it is going to be what it is. But it'll be fun either way. It's going to be an all-day, one-day event, and there's special deals at the DeSoto Hotel for those who are going to be attendees, but they would have to arrange that with the hotel, not with me, and not through the Savannah Crime Expo. That's done directly through the hotel in terms of hotel arrangements. But I also really, really do recommend for other people to look outside of the DeSoto Hotel for accommodations, because you can really get better prices and really historic and beautiful accommodations in more historic boutique hotels for actually less money.
Mhm.
So if you want to do a little bit more research, you can find some really close by fun places to stay that may be even haunted or have a little more history to it if you're into that. So I really do hope to see you there, and I cannot thank you enough for having me today.
Why, sir?
I really can't.
The beauty of it too of this expo is we are not glamorizing crime and criminals. It's not about the criminal.
No,
It's education.
no,
It's educational, and
absolutely.
we support victims and crime survivors. It's not about
Yes.
is Ted Bundy cool or interesting.
No,
he was a
no.
punk. He was
No.
a punk.
It's mostly focused on understanding how many of the cases were solved and the tech and the forensics behind it. So whether it's the psychology or just the analysis behind the solving of the crimes and the high profile crimes and how they went about doing it, so we can understand it better. So as the new generation comes in, and those just people who have interest in true crime can understand how it was done, but how we can perfect it so in the future we can do a better job at catching these people and preventing crime as well. And that's the focus, but absolutely not glamorizing these people, because who wants to do that, right?
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Best True Crime. I'm Judith A. Yates, and I hope you subscribe. Be sure to visit truecrimebook.net and be safe out there.